In the next series of video tutorials, we're going to be covering the information that is below the wedding couple data screen. Now, if you recall, we'll just pop it up here and show it to you. There are a series of popovers all the way down to the wedding decoration, and the one that is marked in blue and this one are not just portals. They actually have more information and data that actually is added. Now, for example, if we go in and we're going to start with the wedding schedule, we go to the wedding schedule and you're adding the event name for the wedding schedule, the event place, the event date, the time, and name of the attendees. And this is similar to the invitation listing, only this is a scheduling system. Now, we explained in the last video that you're scheduling any events that are going to occur. Well, along with this, some of the screens in the navigator are the portals. So if you have a portal that you're looking at here or directly across from it on the main navigation menu, you're also going to see a list view. First of all, I'll go to the portal and show you that the portal actually has the same information that is in the individual records. Now let's talk a little bit about why that is. In a portal, you're creating an individual record based on the wedding name and then the information for that particular scheduled event. And the reason I'm covering this particular one to start with is it's very similar to the other portals and the other list views. So if we can figure out how these work, then we can whip right through the rest of them and you can understand how all of them work. The information in the screen that is not shown in the actual portal is the purpose. Now in the purpose, when you take and click the portal button to bring you to this screen, you're going to be able to add the purpose of the attendance, why this is set up, and this narrative could be quite long, so what we're doing is putting it in the portal record where it can easily be read and scrolled through, either on the iPad or the iPhone. The way these field sizes are set up, you scroll down to this and you have area on either side so that you can scroll back, above, and below if you needed to go down in any record that is in a portal. You can also delete a row record. And why would you do that? If you made an error in the actual information that's going in there and it's not just a typing change, maybe the information you put in should not be in the portal and it needs to be removed, what you would do is use the delete buttons in the portals that you'll see along through the different portals and delete that record by clicking it or tapping on it in the iPad or iPhone or on the Mac, clicking, you will get rid of that one record. Now, there's other things, and we haven't talked about this too much, so let's start talking about the Do Action button and how it's used in an individual portal or in a list view. For example, you can navigate by starting a search, and if you were looking for a particular piece of information, in this particular case, if I wanted to look for maybe everything that had to do with Maggie Smith, or say, for example, a certain date and Maggie Smith, I can combine those. Or I can, for example, find something that says Maggie's home, or I could find out how many records had that in it. And what you do when you start a search, you'll click on the button here, it'll flip the screen and put question marks or little magnifying glasses actually in each one of the fields. And this is typical throughout anytime you're doing a search. The next thing you would do is add the data that you want to put in there. And you can put in a part, for example, you could put Margie and Smith, or you can put Smith, or you can put Margie alone, or you can put in any word that is going to be found within that particular area. Now in this case it says wedding planner first meeting. If there were a number of those in the application on different weddings, it would bring up all the different weddings for that particular thing for wedding planner first meeting. If you were looking for a certain thing on a certain date and it's across several records, you could go ahead and use the date or a particular date and time just to see what is in those events for that particular date and time. And also, in this case, name attending for this particular event would be Margie Smith. And so you have the options. Now, in each portal you come to, you're going to be picking an option and maybe one or more fields. You would start the search. It would flip it over, and for example, I can type in MAR, and you would probably on the, I got a Q in there, let's take that out, put MAR. Now I didn't even have to enter all the information to find the record. I would go back, and then I would say perform the find, and you'll see it'll bring up the record. Now what it did when I was in that record, and I'm going to pop up and I'm going to show you how this works. If you click in this little bullet thing here, it'll bring it up and you'll see there was one found record, and there's only a total of one record in the database for that. Now if you had 100, 1,000, or 1 million, you're going to see how many are actually in the found set and the number that were omitted after the search was completed. So in this case, there was only one found record, and we're on that record, 1 of 1, and the omitted number, since there are no other records, if I went in and did a find where there were 100 records, then there would be 99 on this side and 1 over on the found set if there was only one record available. We showed you in an earlier video where you can do a previous in fields and go backward or next or to the top of the record. You can copy a field. You can change bold, italic, and underlined if you wanted to. And as you're adding it or putting in text data, what's going to happen, you're going to see that the data that you're typing in will be prompted down here at the bottom in case you have something that's very close to what you're actually typing. It will give you the option to find that particular information. So what you're doing is you're trying to find the actual information and putting in that data in here. Now this will drop this particular bar down if you click here or if you click done. Now this is very, very important. Do not use these two icons. This would add a record, this would delete a record. Use the interface that's provided for you where it has delete and add records. Do not add records in any record that does not have a do action up here at the top where a add record is here or someplace on the layout that says add record. If there's no add record, that means you do not add records on that screen in that area. Okay, so we did the start, we performed the find. If there were more records, I could say next record, or I can go prior record, the first record and all the ones in the current selection. I can go to the last record in the current selection, or I can say show all records. Now if I say show all, it's going to bring all the record selection back, where all the records that might have been picked now are, if I come back over here and look at the bullet, we're on record 1 of 1, omitted is 0, and we're still on record, but the found set is only 1. You can also go in and click these to cycle through the different records that are in selection in the order that they're actually in there. Or you can omit a record. What an omit does, you can say show omitted if you have omitted any, but they have to be on this side showing that there are some in the omitted. If you omit the current record you're in, just click in any field and click omit, and that record would be omitted and show up on this side. And then it would reduce the found set by that amount that you omitted, how many records you omit. Why would you omit records? We'll see that more in when we're doing a list view where you have made a find and there are records in there that you don't particularly want to have in your found set if you're going to be printing a, say for example, the list view, or if you're printing from a report where you want only certain records to print, you're going to want to probably omit some of those records somewhere along the line. Okay, so that is show omitted is this one where you show only the records that are omitted and it reverses the record. You can complete an omit here. You can use the thing down below to omit them, but this is in all records, so you have the ability to go to the do action and have that option ready for you in case you need to. Print setup, if you want to print on the screen, if there is a attribute in this, like if you're in a list view and you want to set it up for printing, you probably want to go in and do the print setup. And there's also a print record where you go into the print record. And basically, the reason you have print setup is in there for the Mac and Windows versions and cloud versions. In this, when you're on the iPad, the print setup is under the print button, and it gives you the options to change the records as far as the current set. In this, you could say record range, and there's only one record. So if you had a range, you could have picked a range of records, like record 5 to 10 if you wanted to. Or you can say by pages, from numbering from page 1 to page 3, and you can page through the records to see how many pages you want to print. There's also a page range type of a situation where you can say from to, and the page range itself is this information, or all pages. In this case, page 1 is now picked. If you change this and you go, say for example, from 1 to 5, then this option will move out of here. Let's go back over here again. You can scale if you have a laser printer or a printer that can scale. You can go ahead and scale it from whatever it is, for example, and you can set a custom size if you want to, or scale to fit if you had to fit it on a specific screen or paper size. Now, most of the reports that are in this application are set up for 8.5 by 11 page. So if you're going to be doing something like on A4, you're going to have to scale it and use this to scale it. Dots per inch is the clarity, and depending upon your printer's capability, you can do full DPI, 600, 300, 152, or 72, and that will also may affect the actual size, and you may have to kind of try a few things to make sure that you get your page size correct. You have orientation of portrait and landscape. You can change it within the pre-print before you print and set up. And you also have the ability to print a PDF. You can do, on PDFs, you can say, look at the view, the current view. And a lot of times you would do this in a list view where you have several records and you want to just pick that view and see if you want to print it and how it's going to look. You can email the data and email the current page or the current view. For example, if you had an invoice and you wanted to send the first page of the invoice, you could email it. Or you could save what you're looking at as far as save a PDF, save to a PDF, and it would save the screen that you're currently viewing in a PDF. Now, email, what it does is basically bring up the current email, and you saw it pop down, and the reason for that is we're in the simulator, and the simulator does not have the ability to print. Normally, if you say go ahead and print whatever your default printer is, that is the one that's going to pop up. And what this basically did when it popped up and popped down, it doesn't have a default printer in the default settings, so it can't keep it up on the screen. So that's why it did that. The next thing is exporting data. If you want to export data, you have to be in the screen where you're exporting data. For example, if I pick the wedding schedule portal, that is the data that will be exported. You can pick how you want to export it in a file format. Tab delimited is probably one of the best selections, or an Excel spreadsheet. If you do comma delimited, realize that you're going to have commas in between all your data, and that is a CSV file kind of a situation. A CSV file in a lot of cases is things like Gmail or other mail programs where if you want to export, say for example, your client data, you can export that and then use it in a CSV format to add it to your contacts within, say, Gmail, for example. So that's very useful. Fields, you can pick the fields you want to actually export. Just uncheck any of the blue, and you could scroll up and down if there's a lot of fields in there. In this case, there's not a lot of fields. Anything that has a blue check on it will be exported. You can deselect all or select all, and you have some options. For example, if you want to, say, for example, just do a couple of fields, you can also export them in a PDF format when you get ready to Excel that or send them out. The next thing is the layout formatting. If you want to have it formatted as it's shown on there with the example of how they're in the order they're in, click this or tap it and it will put them in that order. And then when you do the email this time, what it'll do is it'll put it in the format of the way that it looked in here in the order that it's going to be sent. I like doing a PDF of the screen if you can fit on the screen and sending that, for example, like an invoice, because it does have the ability to capture all the data in a single snapshot. But you can also still save it to a disk or hard drive and then send it from the hard drive if it was on a Mac or PC or on the cloud. Okay, we're all done here. The last things are the developer support, and we told you what that did in a prior video, and the video help, which takes you back to the main screen where you can watch the next video. Okay, now we've covered a lot. Now, what's going to happen, I will not cover these things again. We're going to move through portals and list views, and we're going to do that so we can see how the data is used in each screen, but we're not going to, in most cases, be doing a search or find or omitting any records. So that is why we did this particular screen and the screens in it. Now, when we come back, we'll be covering, now we're in the wedding schedule, we'll be covering the list view here, and we'll work our way down through the list of all the different items in the screens and show you how they work and how they function. Keep in mind that this side is all the actual screens, and most of what is in the wedding couple data is covered in the popovers. These are all separate things that are list views, and these down at the bottom are lists, period, where you have lists of stuff for scrollers where you're modifying the scrollers. Okay, when we go back to the next video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working our way down through very quickly through these, with the exception of showing the invoice, which will break for that. Okay, and the reports. Thank you for taking this video.